Karen actually called the cops on me over my own pool. I'm not kidding. She stood there in my backyard, finger jabbing toward the water, screaming that I was illegally restricting community access. The officer was trying so hard not to laugh that his voice shook when he said, "Ma'am, this isn't community property." And when I handed him my deed, proving the pool was entirely mine, even he cracked a smile. That moment, watching Karen's face fall apart, was pure satisfaction. But you know what? That showdown didn't come out of nowhere. It was 3 months of insanity leading up to that point. When I first moved into Willowbrook Estates, I thought I'd found peace. The kind of quiet suburban dream you see in real estate ads: kids riding bikes, golden retrievers running across lawns, people waving from their driveways. My house wasn't the biggest or flashiest, but it had one perfect feature: a private in-ground pool. After years in cramped apartments, that pool was my paradise. I signed the closing papers, imagining summer nights floating under the stars, cold beer in hand, finally free. Then came the knock on the door. I opened it to a woman in her 50s with precisely curled blonde hair and a smile that felt like a sales pitch. "Welcome to Willowbrook Estates. I'm Karen Henderson, president for life of the HOA." She said that last part with this smug pride that should have been my first warning. She handed me a thick packet of rules, and as her eyes wandered past me toward the backyard, her expression shifted like a cat spotting a bird. "Oh, how wonderful," she said. "You'll be maintaining the community pool." I blinked. "Sorry, the what?" She pointed right past me. "That pool. It's been a wonderful neighborhood amenity for years." I actually laughed. "That's my pool. It came with the house." Karen's laugh was light and fake, like wind chimes in a storm. "Oh, there must be some confusion. The previous owners always allowed everyone to use it. I'm sure you'll continue that lovely tradition." Then she spun on her heel and left before I could say another word. I remember standing in the doorway, still holding the HOA handbook, wondering if I'd misheard. But no, the next week confirmed I hadn't. One day after work, I walked into my backyard, and there she was, sprawled out on my deck chair. Sunglasses on, sipping lemonade like she was at a resort. I froze. She looked up casually. "Oh, hi there. Hope you don't mind just catching some rays." Mind. She was lying on my towel. I was too stunned to react, so I just muttered something and went inside. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of splashing. When I looked out there, she was again doing water aerobics in my pool. "The water's perfect today," she called out cheerfully, like this was the most normal thing in the world. From that moment, things only got worse. A week later, I found flyers taped to every mailbox in the neighborhood. Community swim hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 to 8 p.m. at Willowbrook Pool. My pool. When I got home that Tuesday, there were 8 people in my backyard, kids cannonballing, parents lounging in my chairs, snacks scattered across my patio table. And there was Karen, whistle around her neck, clipboard in hand, running the whole show. I marched out and said as calmly as I could, "Everyone needs to leave. This is private property." Karen turned crimson. "You're being very selfish. This goes against everything our HOA stands for." That night I bought a heavy-duty lock and chain for the gate. The next morning there was a letter taped to it in perfect cursive. "You are in violation of HOA Regulation 7.3 regarding community access to shared amenities. Remove this lock immediately or face fines." I crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. By then I was half amused, half worried. Could the HOA actually fine me? Did I somehow agree to this in the contract? I read every line of my deed that night, highlighting the property boundaries, the pool, the deck, all clearly within my lot. Still, I started to doubt myself. Everyone else just shrugged. "That's just Karen," they said. "She means well." Tom, my neighbor 2 houses down, leaned in once and whispered, "She tried to claim my hot tub last year, called it a community relaxation station. I had to threaten a lawsuit before she stopped." I laughed, but it was a nervous laugh, because Karen wasn't backing off and she wasn't alone. People actually followed her lead, believing whatever came out of her mouth. Then one Tuesday I came home early, head pounding. I just wanted quiet. But as I turned the corner to the backyard, I froze. There was Karen and 3 other women in matching floral swimsuits performing synchronized swimming routines to blasting oldies music. She had a boombox set up barking orders like a drill sergeant. That was it. I'd had enough. I walked straight out, voice steady but shaking with anger. "Karen, get out of my pool! Now!" She climbed out slowly, dripping water, tugging off her swim cap with fake dignity. "You're making a big mistake," she hissed. "The HOA board will hear about this." 2 days later they did. It was a Friday afternoon when I heard a knock. When I opened the door, I saw a police officer, Officer Martinez, looking politely confused, and behind him stood Karen, arms crossed, a smug little smile plastered on her face. "Sir," the officer said carefully, "I need to ask you a few questions about pool access." Before I could answer, Karen shoved past him. "This man is violating HOA charter rules. That pool is community property, and he's selfishly hoarding it." The absurdity was almost funny, until I realized half the neighborhood was now watching from their lawns. I raised a hand. "Officer, give me 1 minute." I went to my office and pulled out the folder I'd been building for weeks. Title document, survey map, property deed. When I came back, I handed it to him. He flipped through it slowly. Karen leaned over his shoulder, eyes wide. Then he cleared his throat and read aloud. "Property boundaries extend to include all structures and improvements, including the 1,632 square foot in-ground pool and surrounding deck." Karen's face drained of color. But the previous owners," she stammered. "Ma'am," Martinez said, his voice firmer now. "Intent doesn't override property law. This gentleman owns the pool. If you continue entering without permission, you could be charged with trespassing." A snort of laughter came from the crowd. Someone turned it into a fake cough, but everyone knew. The HOA queen had just been dethroned right in front of her kingdom. Karen turned desperate. "You all use that pool?" "Tell him." But nobody said a word. Everyone suddenly found the cracks in the pavement fascinating. Martinez handed me back my papers with a grin he couldn't hide. "You're well within your rights, sir." Then he gave Karen an official trespassing warning and walked back to his cruiser. Karen stayed frozen there in shock, humiliated, and for the first time I actually felt a little sorry for her. Just a little. But the show wasn't over. Mrs. Chen, my neighbor across the street, broke the silence. "Karen, this has gone too far. You need to stop." Tom crossed his arms. "I think it's time we held a special HOA meeting about leadership changes." Karen opened her mouth closed. It opened it again. No sound came out. She finally muttered, I'll review the bylaws." But everyone was already walking away. The following week, the HOA called that meeting. The community center was packed, every chair full, people standing along the walls. I came prepared, deed police report and a quiet determination. Karen sat stiffly at the front, flanked by 2 nervous board members. She tried to start with her usual authoritarian voice. "Let's bring the meeting to order." But Mrs. Chen cut her off. "We're here to vote on your removal from the board," she said firmly. Karen tried to rally. "I've dedicated 7 years to this community. I've only done what's best for everyone." I stood up, holding the deed high. "You mean claiming private property as public, because that's not leadership, that's trespassing." Murmurs spread across the room. I laid out the documents. Proof the pool was never mentioned in the HOA charter. Proof the association didn't even exist when it was built. The vote was swift. 28 in favor of removing her. 2 against Karen and her loyal sidekick, Deborah. Karen's composure cracked. She slammed her hand on the table. "You're making a terrible mistake." Tom leaned back deadpan. "You've already made plenty." And then came the final twist, the one none of us saw coming. The community lawyer, who'd been quietly observing, looked up and said, "Actually, while reviewing property records, we discovered something interesting. Karen, your house. 42 Willow Lane sits about 15 feet outside the HOA boundary. Technically, you were never eligible to serve on the board." The room gasped. A few people laughed out loud. Karen froze, color draining completely from her face. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Oh, it's possible," the lawyer said calmly. "You've been running an HOA you weren't even part of." Laughter erupted. Karen grabbed her purse heels, clicking furiously as she stormed out the door, slamming behind her. That was the end of her reign, 7 years of bossing everyone around undone in 7 minutes. A few days later, I floated peacefully in my pool, drink in hand, finally able to enjoy the quiet. I'd installed a new security system that played an automated message when someone approached the gate. Welcome to private property. This pool is not community property. Have a nice day. The irony made me grin every single time. Word spread that Karen had been personally billed $5,000 for the HOA's legal fees. Tom told me he saw her at the grocery store, but when she noticed him, she abandoned her half-full cart and sprinted to her car. She hasn't shown her face at another HOA meeting since, and legally she can't. Now every time I hear the faint hum of the pool filter at sunset, I remember that day. The cop laughed, the neighbors clapped, and Karen's little empire collapsed into the water. Sometimes the best way to deal with control freaks isn't shouting or fighting back, it's letting the truth do the talking.